Welcome back into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, ladies and gentlemen, for another edition of the preseason report presented by the fine folks at Byers Auto. 40-year vet Tim May, Andy Backstrom, Spencer Holbrook, Perry Eliano, Lettermen Ransom, Cameron Martinez,
Sonny Styles.
The list goes on and on of guys we just talked to in this building, as it was safeties day for training camp. Andy, Tim, what'd you learn?
I learned that Sonny Styles has got to be on the field, and that's coming now from a second coach's voice.
You just learned that?
Eliano. No, you're asking what we learn from conversations here. I've been saying that forever. Sonny Styles and C.J. Hicks got to figure out a way to get those guys on the field because they're playmakers. But Sonny Styles, barring catastrophe between now and the season opener, and definitely by mid-season, Sonny Styles is going to be on the lips of a lot of college football commentators, analysts, etc., because it does appear he's about to be a happening that's going to happen.
Yeah,
6'4", 229 pounds. He has to be on the field. It feels like at this point a foregone conclusion he will be on the field. Everyone's talking about it now, and it's something where he can play multiple different roles. We saw him at all three spots in the spring, at the nickel, the adjuster, and the bandit. And really what we're learning now is that it doesn't really matter as much where these guys are lining up in spring or in the summer in training camp. They're all capable of being interchangeable. That's something that Jim Knowles really likes, that flexibility. So it's going to be situation based. So even if Sonny Styles is repping a nickel, he could be playing adjuster on one play, or he could be going down to bandit for another play.
They need to come up with a new name for him. Just call him the Band-Aid.
Well,
you know what I mean?
that's
covers it all.
That's the biggest thing that I learned today, is that a lot of the first few questions to Perry Eliano were, hey, the adjuster, hey, the bandit, the nickel. I just asked Perry Eliano, are we making too much of these names when Lettermen Ransom has now played all three positions since he arrived at Ohio State a few years ago? Sonny Styles, they call him a unicorn because he can play all of the positions. Jihad Carter repped at nickel in the spring and is now not doing a bit of nickel activity. All three of these guys can play all three. So if you need a certain guy a certain place on first down and then the opposite on second down, you can do that with these three. And Perry Eliano said, yeah, you're making too much of these names. And so I'm going to take that as there's three safeties. There's not an adjuster, there's not a bandit, there's not a nickel, because that is a play-by-play basis, way more than okay, you're cemented here at adjuster. I just think that this defense, I'm getting some real good vibes that the versatility is starting to pay off. The recruiting of these versatile guys who could play any of the safety spots, the development of these guys at any of the safety spots, that is paying off because you don't really have to do a lot of subbing in, subbing out safeties to get the right matchup when you always have the matchup you want on the field. You might just have to shuffle that deck a little bit of the same 11.
That was always the idea of the Jim Knowles defense, is to mix and match just with the personnel that are on the field and change things up. Maybe they should call Jihad Carter the coin star. But I digress, because he could play any of those coins. But Jim Knowles said that he would, when we talked to him, last week, he would like to play these guys in specific spots to begin with as this season unfolds, just to get them more comfortable instead of their head swimming. I've now flipped back to adjuster on this play. Now what do I do? I'm paraphrasing what he was actually talking about, and I think you're going to see guys play pretty much. Let's face it, the Sonny Styles position in that nickel, whatever you want to call it, that little slot there, they can literally morph into a 4-3-4 defense at the snap of a finger, meaning he can step there and be a credible linebacker at 229 pounds, 6'4", and on the next play he can play a nickel slot, and they really truly believe that he can cover almost anybody you can put in the slot, which is going to be interesting, because he was talking about going against wide receivers out here in practice. He was also talking about going against tight ends like Cade Stover, Jelani Thurman, who I brought up to him. So I think that is going to be the flexible position. The other two guys are going to pretty much play the spots they're in, at least for the time being.
Well, and I think that's the point that I'm making, is Sonny Styles can do so much. And I think we've seen, and he's proven, Lettermen Ransom, that he can play both the adjuster and the bandit. And Jihad Carter has enough experience in this kind of a defense, the way he played at Syracuse, where He's played all of these spots. So are they cemented in those roles? Maybe, but that doesn't mean that they have to be.
Oh, I know
'Cause
that.
I guess that.
No, you don't
so
understand. I'm telling you what Jim Knowles said.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about what can happen. I'm talking about what Jim Knowles basically indicated that he would like to see happen as the season starts, and he's the guy that sends them out there.
But yeah,
Okay,
and I
go
guess
ahead.
that's a conversation for another time because
Yeah, exactly.
the Western Kentucky safety grouping is not going to look the same as the Notre Dame safety
No, it's
grouping.
not.
But it's probably going to be the same 3 safeties out there. That's all I'm trying to say. Andy, really interesting conversation with some of these guys. Cameron Martinez is a guy who's really positive, who I think is going to have a role on this team. Lathan Ransom is I think at this point, the unquestioned leader of this safety group. Like, this is as deep of a unit, I think, on the defense. I know that defensive end group with Kenyatta Jackson, if Caden Curry comes on, you could make the case for that. The linebackers, you like the depth there, but I think this safety group will have something to say about that. This is a confident group that seems to have a lot going for it right now.
Well, Perry Eliano says he wants 6+1 in this group, so 6 safeties you can play and then 1 guy that they can use in certain situations. And certainly a lot of the depth that they have there is going to come in handy because there's always injuries, especially in the back end. And in a safety-driven defense, you need all those guys to contribute. Jahad Carter is someone that we kind of forgot about a little bit towards the end of spring because he got hurt, had that leg injury, hamstring that he had late in spring on Student Appreciation Day and missed the final couple weeks there.
Plus, he seemed to be swimming a little bit when we did get to see him play.
Right, and an adjustment from Syracuse, playing 3 years there as a starter, and a little bit out of the conversation, at least from the media and talking about him. But now seeing him on that day one with that top group of safeties, and Perry Eliano was sure to say that, we're still rotating guys in. That's not necessarily the first string, but it certainly seemed like he was getting run with Sonny Styles and Lathan Ransom. And to see him kind of bounce back from that injury is promising.
Yeah, and I want to ask Spence, from what we've picked up so far, do you see freshman Malik Hartford figuring into this?
Yes.
I'm talking about even going into the season as being one of those 6+1 dudes.
Yes, if I had to make the 6+1, Malik Hartford would absolutely be in that conversation. I think that he has already taken a couple of steps to pass a couple other guys on the depth chart.
Yeah.
And that's not just, hey, big dumb Spencer here is talking. Like, there's people in this building who believe the same thing. Yeah. Malik Hartford is making that push. You don't just gain upward of now 30 pounds, not just 20, like we've been hearing, upward of 30 pounds, and he's maintaining it. You don't just hear about that. You don't just see the plays that are being made and think, okay, this is just a freshman flash in the pan. And I don't want to pick on anybody, but like, we saw Kai Stokes in the spring just kind of flying around and being unleashed and making plays and not really playing in the structure of the defense. And then once it was time to get in that structure last fall, he was kind of swimming a little bit.
Yeah.
Malik Hartford was doing that in the spring. Now you're in the structure of the defense in August, and you're still making that push. That tells me that you're not just a freshman safety who, hey, if you're lucky, you'll get on the punt team. That tells me that you are making the leap almost like Lathan Ransom did as a freshman, where in 2020, yes, it was a weird offseason, but Lathan Ransom was fully a part of that safety equation throughout the 2020 season. It culminated with him starting against Northwestern in the Big Ten title game. I'm not saying Malik Hartford's going to start a game for Ohio State this year. I think that's a bad thing if he does.
Yeah, that's not the point. Yeah.
But I also think that if you see, if you're up 24-0 on Indiana in the second quarter, it's not going to surprise me even game one if the twos are out there for a series and number 25's back there making plays. This is a guy who is getting it and getting it quickly. And I'm not going to slow down on talking about him. I'm actually going to write a story about him because, everybody knows what Lathan Ransom is. Everyone knows, who Cam Martinez is. Everybody, I think we've got to start to get used to hearing the name Malik Hartford, not just because he might play as a freshman, but because there's a good chance that he and Sonny Styles are two of the biggest names in this safety room next year at this time.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the question I asked Sonny Styles. I said, everybody's talking about this defense being different this year compared to last year, just in effectiveness and whatever. And I said, you're the name. You're one of the names that's going to be different out on the field. It does appear, and that's the point. As much as you've got all these guys coming back with experience on the front, at linebacker, you got both starting linebackers, and I think they're really well equipped at linebacker from a depth standpoint. And all the guys in the secondary, Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock. This time a year ago, we were talking about them big time because Jordan Hancock wasn't hurt yet. But Sonny Styles is that, stir the drink kind of player that's going to make this defense different and probably better. Do you agree?
Yes.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like he's the guy that the commentators are going to rave about every game.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about his physicality, it's just his frame and everything that he brings to the field. His dad, of course. And, things are changing with this safety group. We're not talking much about Josh Proctor at this point as we were in the spring. And he could still play a role in that 6+1 package of safeties that we'll see. But certainly it feels like in watching practice that we got to see on the first day of training camp, not as much in the mix as we saw in the spring.
Yeah, and I wasn't that clear last year on in the safety spots what they were really trying to get done. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. What they were really trying to get done almost from game to game. I know they were looking for some matchup situations and stuff, but I think it's more defined now, both with Jim Knowles working with Perry Eliano and Perry Eliano working with these guys, of kind of where these guys, they have more of an idea of where these guys fit and what they do best. And like you were talking about, changing the defense without changing the safeties, from one play to the next or one series to the next. That's the flexibility they're going to have in this group that they didn't have last year.
And it's funny, Tim, we talked a lot of the offseason about the safety group that's coming back.
Yeah.
With Lathan Ransom and Josh Proctor coming back and Cameron Martinez being back. But in reality, like the last 2 years where we've seen the youth movement kind of take over at the first two levels of the defense, it almost feels like the youth movement is starting to creep into that safety room where, Sonny Styles is going to play a lot. I think Malik Hartford will at least have a say in that two deep.
Yes.
Jihad Carter's a new face that's coming in, obviously a veteran, but a new guy here. I guess it's weird that the more we talked all offseason, it was the veterans that are coming back, and the veterans that are coming back, when it's really new faces in this room that may elevate the ceiling. And I even almost put Cam Martinez in there because I don't think we've seen the best of him. I really don't. And I think that he can still have a big say in this team. A lot of people just remember him as getting turned around against Michigan, but I think Cam Martinez has a lot to say about the ceiling of this secondary this year. I really like this group.
And wait a minute, Cam Martinez and what he brings to the table. Yeah, it's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah, we've been saying that for years now.
Exactly. And boy, if a second year into the safety kind of mix, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it more. He's gonna be more. They don't like for them to be thinking a lot out there. So he'll be thinking pre-play what's going. It's going to be more familiar to him than it was a year ago. And there's also a guy to keep your eye on as this goes on.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, it's so interesting. Look at that nickel spot. I know they can all play other places, but Cam Martinez really feels like he's in that nickel spot.
Yes.
And he has such a different body frame than Sonny Styles and what they can both offer to the team.
Everybody does.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's even accentuated with those two. And they both play in the same position right now, at least most of the time from what we're seeing. And so that's really interesting. What situation are you using one player versus the other? I'm curious to see how that rotation works because I think they both will play a role.
It seemed, I think last year, Tim, and you've been using the word swimming a little bit as far as treading water.
Yeah, more treading water.
This safety group, especially, I think last year, even with Tanner McAllister helping them along in the progression of the Knowles defense, I think this group last year was treading water.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you, but if you gave them all truth serum, I think they would admit that. This year is where I think this group takes the biggest jump. I was bullish on this unit, and I'm trying to watch my words here. I was bullish on this unit coming into today. I'm pretty in on this unit. I think this is going to be a good one. And
you mean if this was a political rally, they convinced you?
Yes. Yeah.
They're talking.
Yeah. I'm not in the tank yet, but I'm at least 1 foot in, getting ready to hop in. I think this group, with the combination of the corners and the pass rush, I think this safety group can be a havoc-creating unit.
And not only that, but do not discount the fact Perry Eliano is in his second year as a safeties coach. He knows more about what he's teaching now. He gained fame at Cincinnati at UC for bringing up corners and stuff. And,
for teaching.
Exactly. He's now more ingrained in what is expected out of this defense by the safeties. And of course, they flip the switch there in the back end and have Tim Walton and Perry Eliano, with Tim Walton kind of leading the pass defense coverage kind of scheme or whatever you want to call it. We all know it emanates finally from Jim Knowles, but do not discount what that means. Familiarity by the coaches with what's going on and also with the players are putting out there.
Fellas, as much as I love talking about the safety room, I also love going to Ohio State games. Obviously, we get to do it on a pass level, just because
we're working.
We're working, but the fine folks out there watching this video don't get to do that so often, if at all, get to go on the pass level. So they got to get tickets, right? That's where GameTime.co and the GameTime app come in. The GameTime app is your place to find tickets. Make sure that you go to GameTime.co, use the code Buckeyes, and get $20 off your first purchase. GameTime is a great place to find last-minute tickets. Hey, you guys want to go see Morgan Wallen this weekend in Columbus? GameTime.co. Tim, you just talked about it on your show, but they've got the last-minute hookups for you. You want to go see that first game against Indiana? You want to go see that game against Youngstown State? I think that's going to be a good family-friendly environment.
It's a stress reliever when it comes to getting tickets, both current right now and then in the future. You can get Penn State tickets right now, Penn State, Ohio State.
Yeah, that's the good thing, Tim, is like, you never want to do last-minute tickets unless you have to do last-minute tickets.
Right.
That's where GameTime comes in.
Yeah.
You get your tickets online, last second. You can get them in advance. You got to go to the GameTime app, though. Andy's got the GameTime app on his phone, so he can go watch Boston College games if he ever gets the chance to. Tim's got the GameTime app because he's such a Morgan Wallen fan. I think it's the mullet that does it for you, Tim.
I like the way I talk, man. I like the way I talk.
I think it's the mullet that does it for you, Tim. And I just like going to Blue Jackets games. You want to go see the Crew. You want to go watch the Clips play one night. If you're in Columbus, you want to go see the Browns. GameTime.co is the place to go, or just go to the GameTime app. That's the big thing. The GameTime app, you can use the code Buckeyes on your first purchase to get $20 off. Yeah.
And by the way, they might benefit from a second year of the defensive front in this system.
Yeah.
If JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and Caden Curry and the whole bunch, and Kenyatta Jackson, if they get pressure and create sacks, but even just pressures to force errant throws, maybe they're back there intercepting passes. We talked all offseason about this secondary needs to be more ball hawking. Well, that's part of it too, so they might benefit from that.
Yeah, and the best quarterbacks on this schedule, I think, struggle against really talented secondaries. You look at Sam Hartman, who has a tendency to turn the ball over against good secondaries. You look at Drew Aller, an unknown but a young quarterback who may struggle against best secondaries he sees. You look at J.J. McCarthy, who in true dropback situations, especially against good secondaries, wasn't great last year. Like, there's some favorable things going in this.
Look at Austin Reed from Western Kentucky, who led the nation in passing last year. Third game of the year.
I guess, but
in Ohio Stadium. I'm telling you, that's when I'm going to finally give this a pass-fail kind of situation on where this defensive back, defense is back, and whether the defensive backs are back to that quality, both from a whole defense standpoint, holistic standpoint of the defensive front giving problems to the quarterback, and then the secondary taking advantage of it. That is going to be a true test on whether they can stop big-time passing games.
We'll see. If you want to go to that game, go to the GameTime.co. Go to GameTime.co or go to the GameTime app. Or you can just come to Lettermen Row until then, and then you can buy your tickets at GameTime.co, even if you're a little behind the ball on getting tickets. 40-year vet Tim May will be there. Andy Backstrom will be there for that Western Kentucky game. I can't believe we're leading into the Western Kentucky game.
No, I'm just saying, dude, they
I know what you mean.
400 yards last year.
I know what you.
It's a real test of a pass defense.
I just think it's funny that on August 8th, the matchup we're looking at right now with the safety group is against Western Kentucky. But we'll just be breaking.
The first good matchup.
Until then, we'll just be breaking down the Buckeyes, like we do all year long at LettermenRow.com. 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. I am just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks to the fine folks at Byers Auto for hooking us up, helping us out, and being a faithful sponsor for a long, long time. The fine folks at Byers Auto, the best place to buy a new or used auto in Central Ohio. Again, Tim May, Andy Backstrom, Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys back in here tomorrow for a Ryan Day press conference. Get to hear from the head man himself. We'll see you there.